On Palm Sunday, in Philippians 2, we read that Christ emptied himself for us. Tonight, so here, in John 13, verse 3, we read that Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things unto his hands, also empties himself, taking the form of a servant, even a slave, to wash his disciples' feet. As with Philippians 2, love hangs over every word of this passage. But here, it's explicit. He loved them to the end, John says. And Jesus gives us a new commandment, to love one another. Love is not just a feeling, but a kind of action for another. Washing feet reminds us that love involves touch. Not all touch is loving, naturally. When we empty ourselves, though, and offer love freely, as Jesus does with his disciples on this night, touch is essential to love. And these words are difficult for us to hear now when we cannot touch one another. How do we love one another if we cannot touch, embrace, hold each other? We have found creative ways to work around the prohibitions against touching currently, but the more we Zoom, Skype, YouTube, conference call, email, phone call each other, the emptier these touchless ways of reaching out feel. What do we do? How do we love when we cannot touch? On this Maundy Thursday, this night before Jesus gave himself for us, 3 answers present themselves to us. One from the church's history, one from John 13, tonight's gospel, and one from our current situation. First, in the history of the church, foot washing has often been a means of serving the poor. In the Middle Ages, when foot washing services were held on Thursdays, on Holy Thursdays, it was the poor whose feet were washed. And this makes sense, doesn't it? After all, their feet was likely the dirtiest of the feet in those days. And there was no one who would normally serve them otherwise. Today, when almost everything else is closed, ways to serve the poor in our community are still open. Our food pantry at Center. If you are healthy, you can come and serve on Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And if it is not safe for you to come and serve, you can support it with canned goods and other unexpired, non-perishable items which you add to your groceries. Of course, there are many other ways to reach out, to touch the lives of the most vulnerable in our society, those who are least cared for in our country. Find them so that you can fulfill Christ's command to love one another. The second answer is in this passage itself, in John 13, because here, foot washing and Christ's crucifixion go together. So it should be for us. This desire we have to love, to be able to touch, we can pray that God will use it to draw us closer to Christ. on the cross. This suffering we have now, we can ask God to make it part of Christ's suffering for us on the cross. God will hear our prayer and will answer it. Fulfill Christ's command to love one another by drawing closer to his cross. Third, we know this crisis will end, even if we do not know when or how. What will we remember from this? Will we remember only how creative we were at finding technological solutions to our social distance? Or will we also remember this yearning we have, this pain even, to gather with each other? Will we remember learning how important physical presence and even touch is to loving one another? Fulfill Christ's commandment to love one another by remembering well. I hope that this night you are with someone whose hands or feet you can touch and wash. But if you are not, and even if you are, I hope you will allow Christ's desire and commandment for us to love one another to move you. Move you to service of the poor. Move you to greater intimacy with Christ on the cross. Move you to a better hope for our future life together. Amen.